Welcome back to Construction Executives Live. I'm your host, Jeremy Owens, owner and founder of Three Generations Improvements and U.S. Construction Zone out in sunny Northern California. We got another great show for you today. I want to jump into it, but before we do that, I want to talk about our sponsors. We have two of them today. Build12.com, automate your construction business into a revenue generating machine with the Build 12 system. Visit build12.com, get a free demo, talk to Les. I'm using the Build 12 system, like I've said many times, and love it. So get a demo, check it out. I think it's the fastest growing CRM right now in our industry. So take a look. Also sponsored by Builder Pay Pro. This is something that me and my buddy Matt helped create, and it is a construction payment platform. It's going to save you time, money, get you paid fast. You could use ACH. You can use credit card processing with no fees. You pass those fees on to the client. Take a look, builderpaypro.com, get a free demo, jump on a call with me, and I'll show you behind the curtain a little bit. In thinking about today's show, it's centered around accountability, overcoming fear, taking the necessary steps to better ourselves and our business. I have admittedly struggled in this area my entire career. It's so easy to get bogged down, to get in the weeds in our businesses. We always have the excuse that we're busy, and contractors typically are. I mean, it's valid to get busy and to get lost sometimes, but I think it's not valid for us to take a moment to pause, look at our business, reflect, center. I look back at your goals, see if you're on track. It just is so easy for months, years to go by without taking time to look at ourselves and look at our business. So I'm really looking forward to today's show because it's gonna center us and motivate us, and it's gonna remind us to take our eyes off the business sometimes and keep it on that prize. So with that being said, the title of today's show is Get in the Race: Resilience, Ownership, and the Courage to Start. Nick Klingensmith shares the raw truth behind his transformation from rock bottom to ultra endurance athlete and the mindset shifts that made it possible. We will dive into the power of ownership and radical accountability, why fear and self-doubt are signals, not stop signs, how purpose drives performance even in chaos, and what it really takes to build resilience in business and in life. And after being thrown out of a Las Vegas hotel in a drunken haze, jeopardizing his career and relationship, Nick Klingensmith had to make a change. A 4-time cancer survivor, type 1 diabetic, recovering alcoholic with herniated discs, nerve damage, and sleep apnea, he defies it all when he finds obstacle course racing. Refusing to accept his limitations, he's completed over 100 Spartan races, 6 major marathons, several ultras, and scores of other obstacles and endurance events. As someone who has walked the path of sales professional, Nick is an expert in propelling other achievement-driven professionals and leaders to overcome fear and rejection and push past self-limiting doubts by inspiring them to take purposeful action towards their goals. Nick is a raw and passionate storyteller who holds nothing back when revealing who he used to be and the person he is now. Please help me welcome Nick Klingensmith. Nick, thanks for being here.
Jeremy, thanks for having me. It's good to be here today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Well, let's dive into your story a little bit. I mean, it's a good one. It's you don't hear all of those things in one sentence very often. So tell us a little bit about your journey and why you're here today.
I want to tell you, I guess it all started. It all started when? But
Right.
the first critical moment was I was first diagnosed with cancer in 2005. And whereas prior to that time, I certainly had a lot of life experience, we'll say. But from the period of 2005 until 2016, I was diagnosed with cancer 4 times. I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I tore my shoulder playing competitive beach volleyball, had to have surgery, and as a result of which, have permanent nerve damage. Had hip surgery. I was in multiple car accidents. I have 7 herniated discs with nerve damage as a result from that as well. And over time, the totality of all these things that continued to happen to me, the overwhelming, consistent ass kicking that life continued to
Yeah.
deliver, it helped me to create this mindset that defended me and protected me. And that mindset was that of a victim. I was
Mm,
petty and resentful and angry and fearful, and I was a victim. And as I cultivated that victim mindset, I dove deep into a bottle. And I spent several years as a highly functional, and I mean highly, my career flourished during this time, but as a highly functional alcoholic. And a number of things began to happen over time that allowed me to start making changes to my life. In 2014, I got sober. But it was the most critical thing that happened to me was in 2016 when I had just decisively beaten cancer for the fourth time. And my boss walks into my office about a month after and he says, I want to do a Spartan race and you're going to do it with me. And I looked at him and I'm like, the fuck I am. Like a 8 to 10 mile trail run. Like, that's crazy. I have no intention. No way do I want to be that uncomfortable. But I had
right.
gone home that night and I really had this, like, I was physically on the couch, but realized how I was metaphorically on the couch too, how I honestly had everything going for me at this point. I was sober. I was a VP of sales. I had 100 people working for me. We were crushing goals. I was dating an amazing woman that's now my wife. I was managing my diabetes. And I had all these things going for me. And I realized in that moment that I was just stuck. And so I said yes to the race, one time. And that was a little over 8 years ago. And in that time, I've completed 115 Spartan races, 6 major marathons, including Boston, Chicago, New York, and Berlin, several ultras. I've written 2 books. The first is Through the Fire, which is the story I told you. And the second is Selling Inspired, which I'm sure we could dive into a little bit later.
Yeah.
And now I share the messages from my journey and how other people can help overcome what they're going through.
Right. Dang, that is a lot to break down. I mean, I'm always fascinated. I mean, you said that pivotal thing about the obstacle races. I'm always fascinated about what sports, as a prior athlete, a coach, and a son that's a junkie too. Not just sports, but competitive racing, all of those things. I'm always fascinated as to what that does to a person in business and in life. So, what do you think it was that got you hooked, right? Because yeah, I'm like you. If someone said that to me right now, I would have the exact same response. No interest in doing that. But by the time we're done with this show, I probably can sign up. But anyways, like, what do you think that was for you to that got you hooked on all the racing?
Well, let me tell you what first got me to say yes, and why I was where I was. People can change, but they have to want to change.
Mhm.
And I did want to change. I wanted something. I was a competitive beach volleyball player for a long time. And between injuries and just my choices when I was an active alcoholic, I really kind of worked my way out of the game.
Right.
And even though I had lost some weight and I was like feeling all right, I wasn't in shape to play volleyball again. And so I wanted, I used to work out, right? Like once you want to go
Right.
back to how you were when you were 24. And since you can't, you don't do anything. And that's where I was at, where I had this desire to get active again. I hated feeling the way that I felt, but I just, I didn't have that thing to get started. I wasn't motivated. I
Right.
don't have the time. Every excuse in the world. I can't run because of my diabetes. Sleep apnea ruins me too much, and work stress and blah blah blah. Wah wah wah. So what I wanted was I just wanted a change. I wanted a catalyst. And I said this race was 9 weeks away. It was 9 weeks from that moment that he walked into my office. And I go, you know what? I could stand on my head for 9 weeks. It was the perfect amount of time. I
Right.
wasn't trying to change my life. I was just trying to get active again so I could start playing volleyball again.
Right.
Now, what happened though? There's a couple things that happened. I'm going to skip ahead to the race day. The first part of it is I had created such a comfortable life for myself. The couch was not a metaphor. It was my favorite fucking place. All right.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
the relaxed place, the safe place, the comfort place. All right. I didn't like to take risks. I didn't like to do things like, I just didn't want to challenge myself. And so I had really created a bubble around myself with all these limiting beliefs about myself that I would, never be able to run because of my diabetes, never be able to adventure because of sleep apnea, that I'd always be held back because of addiction. But when I did my first race, all of a sudden, I'm out there in the woods. I'm like 36 years old, 35, I don't know, 37. I'm 30. I'm somewhere in my high 30s. And I'm running through the woods and I'm tackling obstacles. And I'm out there and I'm just like a little kid. No inhibition, no fear, no doubt. It wasn't me against the world. It was just me in the world. And
Right.
I realized that day when I jumped the fire that I defied everything that I previously believed about myself. I was wrong about all of it. I had all these limiting beliefs, and I realized I was limiting my actions and limiting my life simply because of the choices that I was making. And I was like, all of a sudden I had all this blank space in front of me and I wanted more. And so that's where it began to help. You find out that you have a superpower and you want to explore it. And so
Right.
all these things happened incrementally because I still didn't say I'm going to do hundreds of races, become a motivational speaker, change my life, change others' life. I wanted to do some more races. And so when you start adopting an endurance lifestyle, if you want to do it well, you start making other decisions. So I wake up early consistently to work out before work. In order to do that, I started going to bed at a regular time for the first time in my entire life, having a regular sleep cycle.
Right.
I wanted to feel better, so I started eating better. I wanted to recover faster. So I started learning about stretching and yoga, and I wanted to become mentally tougher. So I started meditating. I was literally improving in mind, body, and spirit in all aspects of my life. So racing became this thing that I do, but the lifestyle was about personal and self-improvement in all those different areas.
Dang, that's great. That's so true. Oh, I love that. I mean, so all the obstacles that you had lined up in front of you, would you change any of them? I mean, it's kind of a tough question. I know that a lot of people. I know what you're gonna say, but like, would you change any of them, or did you need all of those obstacles to be where you're at now?
I'm going to give you two answers actually, because one of them is, somebody actually asked me a while back that if I thought that I would be a better athlete if I wasn't a type 1 diabetic. And my answer was no, because if I wasn't a type 1 diabetic, I would not be an athlete at all. So I am who I am, and I wouldn't change almost any of it. I'd get rid of sleep apnea.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't think that,
Yeah, that's helping you. Yeah.
I don't think that's something that has, well, I say that now, but let me tell you something. I've had it for at least 20 years now, and I still struggle. And I've been struggling with, like, as you get older, I mean, just everything, sleep gets harder and harder to begin with.
Right.
But when you have a CPAP mask, and there's a lot of things that can disrupt your sleep, and a lot of it is the subtle little leaks that happen when you move on a pillow or something. And so I actually started studying the data from the machine with Chat GPT, as
There you
well as
go.
the data from my Garmin, which tells me about movement and stuff. So I've actually been
Right, I was gonna
improving my
say.
sleep through this.
Yeah.
Um, so I tell you right now that I would get rid of sleep apnea because it doesn't create any benefit for me or anyone else. It just literally is trying to kill me. And it's it's that thing. However, what if I'm able to make right now I'm still in the experiment to learn a little bit phase, but what if I am able to dramatically improve this and
Right.
somehow, and then I have something I can share with others. So maybe it is something I need and I just haven't learned it yet.
Yeah. I mean,
Right
that's a
now it's
great answer.
rough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So what were the biggest mindset shifts in your transformation? Can you walk us through the key moments, where everything kind of changed for you?
I mean, the first one I told you was when I came through the fire that day, because it was like a spring morning. I mean, it was just so refreshing to all of a
Mhm.
sudden, like, have nothing holding you back. But I'm going to fast forward a little bit, where I told you I got into racing and then I started creating these good habits and I was feeling better about myself. And then it hit me, literally, the second car accident. I was hit
Mm.
from behind while I was sitting at a red light by a woman that was going full speed. And she flipped her car and went boom, 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 four times, like something out of the movies. I was in a Jeep, a lifted Jeep, which was badly damaged. I Obviously got several herniated discs and permanent nerve damage. That night, my cat of 12 years died.
Mhm.
And 10 days later, the lady who hit me died.
Jeez.
And all I was doing was sitting at a red light. The last thing that happened to her was me, and I felt responsible. And so now I found myself literally back on the couch, heartbroken, physically broken.
Uh-huh.
And I felt like everything that I had been doing wasn't real. I felt like it was all being taken away. And I felt like I wanted to give up, like I wanted to quit, like I was actively trying to quit. Just what does that really mean? Because
Right.
what happens is you start going to work. You keep going to work. So you keep taking showers, and I keep walking the dog, and you put food in the fridge. And so I can talk like I want to quit, but I'm not. And so I ended up putting another race on the calendar. And even though I was injured, I talk about this in my book. I learned how to do one-arm burpees. I trained one-arm push-ups, like all sorts of things, because I wanted to get back into it. But I was training and I was just flat. Like my emotion, my heart wasn't in it. And I was listening to this compilation on YouTube, a couple motivational speakers going back and forth about being a victim or survivor. Are you a victim? Are you a survivor? And I'm thinking to myself, what's the fucking difference?
Yeah.
People have been telling me my whole life that I'm a survivor. I started in 2005, but that's not even the first time I almost died. So people have been telling me that I'm a survivor my whole life. And for a long time, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a survivor. But I'm like, what's the point? Just hanging on, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. I spent the last 20
Right.
years in logistics. I was at a conference talking to a bunch of truck drivers and stuff and logistics companies. And I'm like, guys, what's the point of just showing up every day, waiting for the next bad thing to happen? We do not exist to survive. And I threw what I call a glorified temper tantrum. And I shit you not, I train outside. I was outside in my backyard. Back in the day, I used to live on the water. So my neighbors on the other side could hear this at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I basically just started screaming. I was like, because I realized in that moment that if you're the only way to be a survivor is if you're a victim.
Mm.
And I realized even though I had been sober, I started living a better life. I was doing things. I was getting physically active, like all that shit. I was still being a victim. I'm still standing there. Why me? Woe is me. Oh, this happened to me. And I got so sick of it. I just started yelling out loud. And the ultimate declaration is that I'm going to do shit that diabetics should not. I am going to live my best life and spit in the face of cancer every single day. I am going to help other alcoholics get sober because that's how I recover. I will not be defined by my adversity, but rather my triumph over it. And that right there was one of the key moments because I said that I will no longer be a victim. And that's how you stop surviving. But there was something that had to happen after that too. That was the mindset shift of saying where I'm taking personal responsibility for everything in my life. I'm not at fault for being a diabetic, but I am a diabetic.
Right.
The more I accept that, the more I take responsibility for it, the less power it has over me, the less power these other things have over me. I am an alcoholic. I don't say that for you. I say that for me because the more I accept that, the more I have power over it. I am no longer being a slave to alcohol. So when I wrote my book, when I first started the first book, Through the Fire, which was about, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I should put this moment out. After that temper tantrum, that next year, I completed 27 races, including the Boston and Chicago marathons, raised $10,000 for charity, and I proposed to my wife in front of the King Leonidas statue in ancient Sparta. We call that a comeback. So when I started writing Through the Fire, the first draft was like this 125,000 word ego manifesto. All right. It was like a movie poster with Jake Gyllenhaal and The Rock on the cover. So that second year I spent revising and just getting honest with myself because it was a cool look in obstacle sports and, some badass stories of resilience, but it wasn't honest. It just wasn't honest about who I was and what I was going through and what I was thinking. And so I really just had to drill into it. When I did that is when I began to see the pattern to it all. I cut out 37,000 words and I began to see a pattern and a purpose. And this was the other critical moment is that my purpose is to overcome every obstacle and inspire others that they can too. And that's it. So when bad things happen to me now, It's like a game.
It's like
Well, now I get to
opportunity.
overcome this
Yeah.
and then learn how to do it and help others. So those were the critical moments that led to the mindset shift. It was first I had to take responsibility for everything and then find a way to do something with it. And that's how we go from surviving to thriving.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. So tell me a little bit about, so you've been through how emotionally, physically, how do you turn that, like you said, that you're no longer a victim. How do you turn that into resilience? And I want to caveat this with, like, I think, looking at my kids' generation and looking about the kids, they really struggle with this component, this resilience piece. Like when things happen to them, they're not very resilient. And I think if that's partly the social media thing. I think that's partly not being connected to nature, not having that thing that they do. Like for you, it's racing where your mind's free. You're a kid again. Those things are like kind of missing, I think, in a lot of kids' lives. So how do you turn that into resilience? And then how do you teach others to do it themselves?
Well, number one, just because bad shit happens to you doesn't make you special and it doesn't make you tough.
Mm,
That's number one, because
right.
you're not resilient just because you're taking a beating. I thought I was resilient for a long time. I wasn't. I was resentful. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Being angry and being tough are not the same thing. And so I had to get over that. But to build resilience is you have to go through it to get through it. I mean, there was a friend of mine I spoke to yesterday who actually was like, "Oh man, I wish I was more like you." And I'm like, because he's going through it right now. And I'm like, dude, that's not, I wasn't this way then.
Right.
You have to go through it to get through it. And it's funny. I have a guy that I coach. He's about 12 years younger than me, so he's not quite a kid, but he's not almost 50 either. And
Right.
he commented once how he had not been through anything that I'd been through. He's like, I really haven't had to face much adversity. And so, you know what I challenged him to do? Go find some. Go find some. Go run into the burning building. Go sign up for a race. Do something hard. Fuck up your life. Like, actually
Right.
take measures to find difficulties. And it doesn't have, that's what I love about Spartan races, bro. I am a house cat. You know what I did when I ran the race on Saturday? I ran another one. All right. And then you know what I did? I went home and I showered. And I spent the majority of the day on the couch with the dogs watching Ted Lasso. Like, all right, I'm not out there living on the land. That's how I continuously push and challenge myself. I'm doing the Ironman in Belgrade. I have sworn forever that I would never do an Ironman. I had no interest in doing it. And part of the reason was, like a lot of people, the swim. Even though I
Mm,
can swim, I was kind of petrified of the swim. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I have to do it. I
right.
have to do it because the mentally tough part. So, I like driving down to the Gulf and going swimming at 7 o'clock in the morning, like, and just forcing myself to be the only person out there because it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little scary.
Nice.
I'm afraid of snakes. That's why I like running through swamps on weekends and races. I'm afraid of heights. That's why I get up on those obstacles. And so a lot of it is just go find the adversity. And it doesn't have to be the craziest thing either. Do a 30-second cold shower. Like,
Yeah.
skip a meal, or just do something. Get up earlier. Don't change your life. Just get up earlier tomorrow. Just do something a little bit each time to make yourself more uncomfortable, because the more that you are able to take, the more that you can take. You build resilience every time, but like anything else, you have to use it. It's just like your biceps don't get bigger when you're not lifting weights with your biceps. Resilience works the same way.
Right. Right.
And I
Yeah. I mean,
100% agree with kids today that
yeah.
they're going to find out the real hard way. And I will tell you that the few that rise
Mhm.
will rise a lot.
Right. Right. Yeah. That is such an interesting thing. Like, I have a couple friends that, we listened to a TED talk. It was in Folsom, and she talked about doing one hard thing every year, and like a really hard thing, like what you're talking about, is like find that thing that makes you uncomfortable, and then sign up for it, right? And then just see what happens to your life. And it's like I totally subscribe to that, and I think it's hard for a lot of people to A, find that thing, or B, want to face their fear, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm afraid of public speaking. Let's go, do Toastmasters. Like that sounds like a nightmare, So it's like, but that's what you're basically advising people to do, right?
I mean, it's not fear chasing. Oh, I'm sorry, I just whacked that knee with the tendonitis. It's not necessarily fear chasing. Like, I'm not going to go handle a snake,
Right.
but it's about finding things that are more important than your fears so that you do the thing anyway. Like that's why I don't allow my fear of heights to prevent me from getting on an airplane or to
Right.
prevent me from getting into an obstacle course race or going on a roller coaster or doing something fun. I don't remember who it was. It might have been a TED talk. I don't remember honestly. It might have been a TED talk. It might have been just somebody's YouTube video or a book, but there was somebody and they were talking about building this resilience, and he would give them the most asinine things to go do. Like, go up to your neighbor's house and ask them to borrow some toilet paper. Or go up to a stranger's house and just simply ask, hey, can I come inside and have a cup of coffee? Like, go up to a complete stranger and ask them questions about themselves, or like ask people for favors or ask someone for a ride. Like, do these things that can make you completely beside yourself
Right.
uncomfortable. Because once you realize this, and now I'm going to go back to when we were kids, okay? Because our fears are liars. And we have been proving that since we were 4 years old. And I can prove it to you right now because you found no monsters under the bed or hiding in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we look under the covers, we see that there's nothing there.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, a lot of that we have to. And, it's funny. I spoke in the logistics industry the other night, but I think this being in another industry that is so impacted by the economy and things like that, every day you stand tall during a chaotic crisis shit show of a market cycle, you're just a little bit more resilient. You're a little
Mm-hmm.
stronger and you're a little more prepared for the next crisis. Sometimes all you have to do is not lose your shit and you win
Right.
today, because
Right.
there's always going to be a next crisis. There's always going to be the next thing. We're never going to reach the top and just go, oh, cool, everything's easy now.
Right. Right. I'm kind of going back to like what your friend said or your mentor or whoever you were talking about, where, they were saying, I wish I was you, because of what you've gone through and the resilience you've created. But, I always kind of go back to everyone's hardest thing is their hardest thing, right? It's not their fault.
It's all
Just like
frame
it's
of
not your
reference.
exactly. It's not your fault that you got rear-ended. It's like we don't our life is our life. Things are going to come at us sometimes. Someone lives a charmed life and they're 60 years old and everyone's still alive and there's been no issues. But it's coming, right? It's coming for you. And it's like, so it's difficult, I think, for a lot of, especially Americans that live suburbia, high middle class. Your parents kind of gave you everything. You went to college, you never paid for anything. Like everything is just steamrolled out of your way. And then you enter adulthood for the first time, and then things start to happen. And I feel bad for those people because it's like they haven't had any training for this, and life's gonna come for all of us, right? So it's hard to kind of coach that sometimes, right?
I mean, it's 100%. It's all a frame of reference. If somebody's never had any adversity in their life and they stub their toe, that's the worst thing that ever happened to them. It doesn't make it any less real.
Right.
And that's something I do talk about, because comparison syndrome is just dangerous across the board there. And
Right.
I hate it when people are like, oh, I haven't been anything like you've been through. I'm like, shut up, dude. I don't want your
Mhm.
life. Like, I don't know what
Right.
you've been through either. And, there's a saying about like, if we all put our problems on the table, we'd probably all take our own back. And
Ah.
where I'll be honest, I've never met anyone else who, when they put their problems on the table, that I want theirs more than I want mine. So, I mean, everything
It-
is a frame of reference and I can take it. I mean, that said, it's like what I love, you talked in the beginning about sports in general too.
right.
Physical endurance training is mental endurance training. Obstacle course racing, endurance training. And I mean, endurance, we're not talking about a mile. We're talking about things that take hours at a time. It requires problem solving. It requires the same like mental endurance and problem solving that you would in business and in life. It all comes down to, what is the objective? What do I need to overcome to get there? Which usually comes down to skills, resources, or experience. And then execute. How do I overcome this problem? And We were talking about a couple, the tendonitis here and the tendonitis there. You know how I
Yeah.
overcome most injuries? I wait for the next one.
Yeah. The pain response goes to a different spot, right?
That's kind of it. I mean, at some point, I will ignore my daily rehab on these two things and I'll begin work on something else. And it won't even really because the first one's better. It's just the next crisis, the next problem, the next thing comes along. And it is hard because it's if you sit in a no limit hold'em poker tournament for a long time, if you're a tight player like me, you could sit there for hours and do nothing but fold.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get four hands in a row that you have to play and they all beat on you.
Uh-huh.
That's life.
Right.
That's how it happens. It doesn't happen one bad hand here, one bad hand there. Every couple of years, we have no control over the timing. We have no control over the events. The only things, and nobody ever likes to hear this. They all nod their head when I say it, but they hate it. The only things we have control over are our thoughts, words, actions, and reactions. Every other thing, every other thing is beyond our control. It's possible that with our actions and so forth, we can influence things, etc. But you know what? Nobody ever made a decision based on my influence that they didn't want to make.
Right.
That's the decision. That's why blame is the most irrelevant thing in the world. Well, you did. It doesn't fucking matter what I did. You
Right.
did it. You took the action.
Yeah, the one comment about reaction too is seems like such a microcosm of our life right now, and I think social media has a big thing to do with it, right? Is like your reaction to whatever. It could be political, it could be what someone said. Like, why are we spending so much time worrying about random people that we don't know and then reacting to them constantly? And like I don't think they have any idea what it's doing to their soul, right? What is that doing to you? Like it's hard to be a good person when you're spending so much time, trying to trash somebody online or being a bully. All that stuff is just crazy of life right now.
I have a contrarian thought to that though. I think you give way too much credit to a button on the phone. Social
Mhm.
media is not a problem. People are the
Right.
problem. And you know
Right.
what? If social media didn't exist, those people are going to do the same shit. They're going to
Mm.
go down to the hair salon or the barber shop and they're going to find their own gossip and they're going to find ways to judge on people and pick other people. And they're going to find reasons to be jealous and create
Right.
false narratives in their head and new anxiety and new distractions. Nobody can make you press that button. Nobody can make you scroll. Its sheer existence has zero power over a human being.
Right.
We are responsible for pressing that button. So,
Mm.
you know what my social media looks like? It's all positive. I have
Mhm.
zero politics.
Yeah.
Zero. It is
Right.
positivity, it is racing, it is industry news, it is dogs because it's
Right.
my feed. So let's
Right.
stop making excuses for ourselves. If anyone listening right now, I'm tired of social media, it's so gross, and that's you. You
Right.
choose your feed. You make that choice. Oh, but isn't it petty if I delete people? No, it's not. They don't give a shit. They don't
Right.
know it. And
Right.
by the way, not for nothing, I don't care whose side of the aisle you're on. If
Right.
you
Right.
continuously post political stuff, you're gone because it's my nightclub. I
Right.
see what I
Right.
want to see. I think social media is one of the greatest things we have out there because it is a wealth of knowledge and information. Remember, I told you
Right.
I'm treating sleep with AI. Like I
Right.
learn how to fix injuries on Instagram. I find diabetic news or diabetic and meals and stuff like that on Instagram.
Right.
Like
Right.
the information's there if you want it. You're in the construction industry. I'm in the logistics industry. Twitter, is a wealth of just information and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But if someone
Mhm.
chooses to go down a gossipy rabbit hole, that's your
Right.
choice.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I take
Yeah.
a,
You're
I take
totally
a bit
right.
of a different opinion, and clearly I'm passionate about that one because I just think it's too easy for us to scapegoat shit. And someone's like, "Oh my god, I had to delete all the apps off my phone so I could be productive," and I'm like, "You didn't change anything. You're the
Right.
problem. You're still going to
Right.
be distracted. You're still going to be. You lack discipline. You don't have too many apps. You lack discipline."
Right. 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 Yeah, no, that's a good point. Customize your experience in life, and it's a lot more customizable than you think, right? Just like you said with the social media, you can fill your life with positivity. And I think that that negative rabbit hole just can take you down. And obviously it
You're
has
right. It's
massive
there and
health
it's powerful.
problems. Yeah. Right. Massive health problems.
And
So you
it's
talk a
triggering
lot of,
because we all have I'm sorry, I was just gonna say we all do have things that we care about. I mean, I'm not completely agnostic. I can't like stop the first thing that pops up on the feed. It could be triggering,
right,
and I'll have to remind myself,
right,
this does not matter. Keep going.
right. Yeah, exactly. Keep moving, keep moving. You talk a lot about personal responsibility and this extreme ownership. Like, what does that actually look like in real life, and how do we start living that way?
Well, I mean, I just gave a great example of it because what I just talked about was personal
Yeah,
responsibility.
sure.
I
Social
am
media.
fully I'm 100% responsible for what I consume. That there is nobody to blame for content besides myself because I'm the one who's seeing it.
Right.
So it starts with that. Let me tell you the thing about blame is that it doesn't solve problems. It doesn't pay bills. Neither does excuses. Personal
Mhm.
responsibility means 100% ownership. And I'll give you an example where I was in logistics. Okay. And we were a brokerage. So we didn't drive trucks. Okay. We didn't wholesale. We don't manufacture. We were a connector of people and information. And so I had my crew, anybody who worked for me, they had to all agree to this. I guess we'd call it a mantra or something, but I said, may not be our fault, but it is our responsibility. We work in an industry where too much time is spent assigning blame and not enough time is spent solving problems. Who's
Right.
at fault only distracts us from solutions. And in our world, it's like, well, the driver screwed us. Yeah, but who's paying us? The shipper. Okay. And what are they paying us to do? Get it delivered there. Okay. What does this have to do with that? It doesn't matter. Fix it.
Right. Right.
Fix it. It's your
Yeah.
responsibility now. You said yes to the load, get it delivered. You said yes to a project, get it done. Oh, but these guys, well, then fix it. It's not
Mhm.
okay. There is no excuse in the universe that is okay for me coming up short.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
mean that I'm expecting perfection, but there's no excuse that changes the result. So
Right.
another thing that drives people nuts, by the way, this is how I think I've gotten myself not welcome to various speaking engagements when I speak to employees, because when you're late to work, there's only one person responsible. You.
Mhm.
It wasn't my fault. It was an accident. I didn't say whose fault it was. I said who's responsible. You.
Yeah.
But there was a 7-car pileup and there was weather and there was traffic. I live in Florida. When isn't there? Who's
Right.
responsible for getting to work on time? You. That's it. Once it doesn't matter. A good boss is going to understand. Hey, I saw on the news it was a freaking crazy wreck. Like,
Right.
it's still your responsibility to be to work on time. It doesn't abdicate your responsibility. Oh, there was weather. I'm still responsible. It doesn't change that. Blame and fault have nothing to do with
Mhm.
responsibility.
Right.
I'm not to blame for being a type 1 diabetic.
Mhm.
And if I was focused on that, oh, it's unfair. It's not my fault. I wouldn't do anything with my life.
Yeah.
Instead, I take
Right.
responsibility for it and I can be an ultra endurance athlete.
Yeah.
It's real easy to, as a solopreneur, whatever you want to call me here, look at, and I'm just I don't know if any of us are in the financial position we want to be. So I'm certainly not. And it's real easy for me to want to make excuses for that. Well, this happened back then and this happened and that should have done blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. Well, what does that change?
Right.
I'm responsible for paying the bills. What happens when I call Wells Fargo on Monday and say, hey, or well, I can pay it on Monday, but what happens if I call Wells Fargo and say, hey, listen, I can't pay you this month, but you see what happened was they're gonna
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
take they're gonna come take your house. It doesn't matter. And so,
Right.
look, at the end of it, right? The reason I'm being so hard and black and white about it is because it is a mindset. It's a mindset of accepting and owning responsibility. It doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen. It
Right.
doesn't mean that people aren't willing to accept things or that you should beat yourself. Also, that's the other thing about ownership is you don't have to beat yourself up for it.
Right.
Own it, fix it. You made a mistake. I own it. I made a mistake. This is where I went wrong, and this is how I'll correct it.
Right. Yeah. That's simple. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to get into this a little bit. You talked about self doubt, that are not signals, or they're signals but not stop signs. So, like, how do you kind of talk to people about that? I mean, it's such a huge concept, but it's so true, right?
Right before So I spoke at the Broker Carrier Summit in Indianapolis the other about a week or so ago, and this guy asked me later. He's like, how comfortable? Like, how long did it take you to get so comfortable on stage?
Mm.
You know what I told him?
Still
I'll
not?
let you know. I'll let you know when I
Yeah,
get there.
exactly.
So
Right.
right before, now this was a pretty big event for me. Okay, it was an industry conference, so it was a really good. It wasn't just speaking to one company. It was a real good way to get my message out there. A
Mhm.
lot of CEOs in the room and stuff like that, and so I really wanted to crush it. Right, I didn't want to use
Mhm.
my note cards. I want to go from memory. I really wanted to deliver. Like of course,
Sure.
everybody wants to be the best. And so right before I go out there, I had to remind myself one thing though. Nobody knows what you're supposed to say. So if you get in trouble, bring the fire. And so even though I was full of doubt, I didn't know if my story was good. Again, just because you had bad shit happens to you does not make you special. People will say, "Oh, you're so inspiring," but after a little while, they forget about you because you're just the guy who got beat up. Like, what are you going to do for them? And
Mhm.
so, and if you're in the business of speaking, I need to make sure there's something that people want to buy after the fact. What's the ROI of hearing from Nick, right? Like what
Right.
we don't just want the sad story. We want the things we're going to walk away from next. And then of course I'm like thinking to myself, a bunch of gruff truck drivers, they're going to give two shits about the stuff I have to say. I'm coming from a sales minded stuff and there's an large operational force, right? I had doubt of there were 600 attendees. Were any of them going to show up?
Right.
Or are they going to go hit the bar or network during that set? All the doubt in the world. But I already committed. I was
Right.
walking out on stage, right? So there's only one thing left to do. Bring the fire, bring my best self, just hit it. And
Right.
whatever happens, happens. Because doubt at that point, there was no room for doubt on that stage.
Right.
And so sometimes it's about putting yourself into positions where you don't have a choice.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, I talked about the financial situation, right? So going off on my own as a speaker, I don't know, 18 months ago or so, there were so many times during the week, during the months where I'm looking at the bank account and the massive amounts that are going out compared to what's coming in.
Right.
And when I was living during last year in the fall, living here in Florida during Hurricane City, back to back
Right.
hurricanes 2 weeks apart, right? My backyard looked like a trailer park. I mean, the screens were coming down, like,
Right.
and you know how much I know how to fix things? I don't. So
Mhm.
what do I do? I say, I don't have time to be afraid of this. I don't have time to doubt this. I'm focused on the things that I can do right now. What are the actions I can take that will get me closer to my goals? I doubt
Right.
myself 24 hours a day on being a speaker or being successful in the business. Those are two different things. Having a story, being able to deliver it, and being able to make money are two separate things. Even
Definitely.
yesterday, I looked at myself. I said, "Hey, we should put a D-Day about when I go look for a job." And then I was like, shut the fuck. No, we aren't. It's not a conversation we're having.
Right.
So there's no like perfect science to it. The thoughts are always going to creep there. We have these internal governors that are always telling us to not run too fast and to not take those risks. They want us to be safe. It's a daily practice. And a lot of it just is full self-talk. And sometimes you have to have that conversation with yourself 15, 20 times a day.
Right. Yeah, right. Trying to bring it back to the positivity. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of talked about it in the open and like, sometimes I'm getting in this place where I feel stuck in the grind, right? And we're not unlike most industries where we just get busy and we get distracted and we get in the weeds. And if you're an owner of multiple businesses like me, you just like the inbox doesn't stop. You get your inbox done, and then your pile is the same, if not bigger, and you're just kind of like, I guess we'll figure it out tomorrow. But like, there's this feeling of being stuck where we're at. So, how do you speak to people you're coaching to get them unstuck and get them to again focus back on the real goals, the big things, the things in the future, as opposed to just the
So a couple
day to
different
day
ways we
stuff?
can go with this, and it depends on where they're at. But for starters, what's your why? A lot of the reason people get stuck, right, is
Right.
exactly where I was in 2016 on the couch. I was stuck because I was winning. I was on top of the freaking world. We think that we
Right.
climb, we hit the peak, and that's it. But that's not how it really is. We hit the peak and we go, ah, shit. There's more over there. And hey, let's enjoy the flat part before
Right.
we climb again. That's fine. So a lot of us get stuck because we go, I don't want to climb anymore. And we think that, we get screwed. We talk about kids. We got screwed up as kids because they said, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so if you didn't become that, you're a
Mhm.
failure. And if you became that, now what? Oh, I guess I'm a failure. So the question that we should have been asked is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? I'm 46 years
Right.
old and I might be ready to accept the fact that I am not going to be the starting second baseman for the Boston Red Sox. We have these seasons when we let go of things. So part of it is enjoy your plateau, enjoy your peak, but life is about continuous climbing. And so that comes with reevaluating and setting new goals. I'm doing an Ironman, something I said I would never do. Well, let me rephrase. I'm doing the 70.3 Ironman, the half Ironman. What do you think is next? Do you think there's any possibility, and from just the little
Right.
we know each other, that I'm not putting Ironman on the calendar sometime in the next year or so? The full Ironman. So and it's
Exactly.
it's not like it's never good
Yeah.
enough or I'm some sort of an achievement junkie, right? I'm not going to win these things, but every time I go after something new, I get new skills, new experiences, new things that I get to add and put in and put into my life. So number one, for those people that are stuck, they need to reevaluate their why. And I'll tell you something, when I coach people, what will really drive people nuts, especially a single parent. And I'm like, what's your why? They take out pictures of their kids. And then I say, stop lying to me. If that was still true, you wouldn't be on the phone with me. And they get mad for a second because, they don't want to admit to themselves that the kids aren't the most important thing in the world to them anymore. But that's not really what it is. The kids are 7 and 8 now. They've your relationship has evolved a little bit. They need you, maybe not the same. Like in your vision of and I'm just making shit up
Right.
from a couple conversations. Your vision of what parenthood looked like has now changed because they've gotten older. So the vision, the why, the goal, it's just different. So reevaluate. It's not that they aren't that important to you anymore. It's just that our priorities begin to evolve. So we have to look and understand, what is that new vision? And I'll tell you what, anyone listening right now, if you think about this, your goal, your dream, your vision is not big enough. People don't dream like we used to as kids. They dream based on their lowest common denominator. What is the thing where's the area that I'm most stuck? And then I'm only going to dream as far as I can from that. That's the wrong idea. Dream is called dream. So, hey, guess what? I'm going to start a company where everybody gets to fly. That's the type of shit I'm talking about. It needs to be big. And before, it's like we laugh, right? But every modern convenience we use today, every single one, including the devices we're on right now, were once thought to be the unrealistic
Right.
dreams of crazy people. People were burned alive for
Totally.
suggesting such a thing would get to be used. So dream
Sure.
big.
Right.
Then once we get that idea of then we have to turn it into reality. And that's where it comes down to just take one. Just take one problem or one
Mm.
project or one thing or one goal or one objective. Just take one and break it down to the wildly
Mhm.
specific and stupidly simple action step. And what I mean by that, wildly specific and stupidly simple, it should be it should be so stupidly simple that you feel stupid writing it down.
Mhm.
All right. And a lot of the times it comes down to these three things: schedule it, Google it, or do it right now. And when I just recently created the audiobook for my book, Selling Inspired.
'Kay.
And I figured, you know what? It's for salespeople. Audiobooks a lot of what we listen to,
Sure.
but I'm like, how do I do this? Right. And I got all overwhelmed and I'm like, and also I don't expect to make any money off it. So it was really hard to prioritize it. I want to
Right.
use it more, a lead magnet, help people, whatever. So
Right.
what I decided to do to get started on it is I scheduled 5 minutes that I would ask ChatGPT, how do I do this?
Right.
All I had to do was schedule it. And when it came down to the 5 minutes, I got on thing and I was like, hey, how do I do this? It took a minute. And so I just started taking the first step.
Right.
And next thing I know, I was like, okay, well, tomorrow I'll record chapter 1. And so, it took me about a half a day to record chapter 1, okay, which was like 6 minutes long. It took me 3 days to record the rest of the book. Just take One, wildly specific and stupidly simple action step. And like things like this, when you're avoiding travel or avoiding projects, right? Like, so this is on a personal level. Look, going to see my dad, who lives in one of the most complicated places in the world to visit. And I'm like, all right, you know what? Today at 4 p.m., I'm going to look at flights. I'm just going to look to see what they are so I can say, hey, am I
Right.
going to try to get up there in July or August, or is it possible? Whatever.
Right.
What do you think happened at 4 o'clock?
Hmm.
I booked the flight.
Yeah. Just get it done. Right.
Well, you're right there. But I
Yeah.
had to schedule it to do it.
Right.
And when I say
Right.
that Google it, that means if you don't know how to do something, so Google it, AI it, whatever. But like, that's that's no different than breaking any other obstacle down. When I started obstacle course racing, I failed a lot of them. And so you start to learn, how do I overcome this? Oh, I need to get stronger at this, faster at this, more skilled at this. I need more resources from that. So break it down to what we need and keep moving forward. Success isn't a goal.
Right.
It's If it is, it's a stupid one, because you need to define it and then you need to set another one.
Right, right. Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I read that book, Atomic Habits, so it was like very much like that. You got to just start with something really small until you make it a habit, and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. Because yeah, you have to chip away. It's like that end look may be like you said. It's a very big goal, but if you don't break it down into small chunks, it seems overwhelming at times. And I think like we talked about a little bit earlier. We get so this whole busyness thing, which fine is valid. How do you recommend people cut through the noise? Is it putting in your calendar? Is it what are some steps that we can take to break that down a little bit?
Number one, we need to stop telling ourselves we're so busy.
Yeah.
The self-talk is confusing. I'm not saying you're not busy, but by telling yourself you're busy, you're even busier than you are. You don't think as straight. You're not as effective. You don't execute.
Right.
It becomes an inherent excuse for bad work.
Right.
So number two, it's about priorities. And this is going to be true in anybody's business. You can't be all places to all things, and you're going to fail if you are. So especially for those who want to grow their business, which I assume is everybody, even though a lot of people say they're in survival mode. I have a call in about an hour with a potential coaching client. They're in the trucking industry. All right. And so they've got a dozen trucks or so. And so they want to become more profitable. And so one of the first things I started asking them, I was like, where do you run your trucks? And she's like, we go anywhere. And I said, now, let me ask you again, because I was a broker for a long time. A lot of times, if I called someone who said they go anywhere, and I said, "Hey, I have a load going to middle of nowhere, North Dakota," you're telling me you'll
Right.
take it? She's like, "Well, I could start looking for." I was like, "Stop! You already know that's a not profitable area for you." The answer to that question
Right.
is no. We do not go everywhere. So what we need
Right.
to do is look at our areas of business. Okay, and I'm going to use business as an example. All right, you got five projects you're working on, 5 projects you're bidding on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 2 projects that are the best that you have are the only type of projects you should bid on.
Right.
You don't have 5 bids. You don't need to do 4 of them. 4 of them are bids that aren't going to make you enough money. They're going to waste your
Right.
time. They're going to take
Right.
you off task. Do less. You want to be more productive? Do less. You want to be less busy? Do less, because you're going to do more. Where am I most profitable? I coach people one-on-one individually, and I'm going to tell you something. It's probably the most fulfilling thing that I do, but I am no longer going to make any outbound sales efforts whatsoever to find coaching clients,
Right.
because it's good business once I have them,
Mm-hmm.
but the amount of outbound work and time that goes into securing one is not worth it.
Right.
I'll go broke. So, and
Right.
not for nothing too, most of my coaching clients find me. So
Right.
it's also hard because, I'm looking at keeping the lights on, like a lot of people are, right?
Sure.
Keeping the lights on for me is coaching business.
Right.
But here's the deal. If you want to stop living off scraps, you have to stop fighting for them. Most of the shit that people do who think they are too busy is stuff that is not productive. It is not going to add to the bottom line. We have to be
Right.
willing to sacrifice. Even when I was in transportation years ago, I almost got in like a knockdown drag out with my boss because I wanted to fire, and I mean fire, the bottom 20% of our accounts.
Right.
It was going to cost us about $112,000 a year. You know how many good accounts it would have taken to replace that? 12.
One. Yeah.
Not even like big count, 12. 12 okay
Yeah.
medium accounts to replace
Right.
like 300 whatever. So that's
Right.
number one, is let's stop trying to be all things to all people. You're good at something, do what you're good at. Be okay with an empty seat. Um,
Right.
and then apply
Right.
those things to the same areas of our life too. So where am I most productive? I am 100% focused on speaking clients. I'm not even
Yeah.
focused on my corporate coaching. People will find me if they want me. I'm looking for speaking. And so all things unrelated to that, even now, which sucks because I spent so much time focusing on brand awareness and really just genuine networking too, which I think is how we connected in the first place, just
Yeah,
genuinely
definitely.
getting to know
Networking.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to continue to do networking, but it also has to be, it can't be top level priority for me. I have to
Right.
make uncomfortable decisions. We always graduate or gravitate towards what's comfortable, especially you own I'm not saying especially, but someone like you owns several businesses, right? It's going to be so easy for you to one day be like, I'm neglecting this over here
Mhm.
because I'm comfortable doing this work right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then, so that's where, when we want to get out of that cycle, off the treadmill, as I like to call it,
Right.
big goals, have big impact, focus on things, make uncomfortable decisions, say no a lot. I guarantee you,
Right.
if you fire 20% of the people and things and activity, all things, if you cut out 20% of everything in your life, you're not going to miss it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we talk about it a lot in construction is learning to say no to a client that you know is not going to be it's going to be stressful. It's like it's one of the most powerful things you could do and you feel great. I remember like going to this customer's house and it was great. He looks and he says, "You're a half hour late." I looked down at my clipboard and I said, "I added 2 and I sent you an email reminder." And he's like, "Well, come on, it's not a good start." And I said, "I'm going to hold on right there. We're not a good fit." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, it's not a good fit if we're already starting from a place of you saying it's not a good start for me." And I said, "Good luck." I turned around, walked away, and I left that appointment like I sold this bitch. I was like, "Yeah," but like those are the types of things you say no to, like you said, and it'll just make your life so much easier. Just focus on the profitable people, the people that you know you can make happy, right? Focus on that.
I'll tell you, man, I was loved and hated as a sales leader because I would not let you sell certain business.
Hmm.
I wouldn't let you do it. And, I'd get some new rep and they'd go crying, "I'd be hitting goal if Nick would let me sell this thing." Like, no, you wouldn't be. You would have been fired already because it's going to be a waste of your time. We're not good at that. Like, all
Right.
you're going to do is you're going to get an unhappy customer from start to finish and you'll never get another load from them. So
Totally.
I get it. Like, it's so hard, especially now. I understood numbers and things that are important, but when you're a W-2, as much ownership as you take of a company, it's still not the same as when you're fighting for your own supper.
Right.
Because I certainly understood profitability and things like that from a business standpoint. But I reflect back now and I think, you know what? If I was paid the same way as I am now, my activities, I would have prioritized them differently in the past,
Right.
because a lot of it I was just because I didn't have to, I was getting paid.
Right.
So you get that luxury part of like, you get to work on things that aren't as important. So I wasn't as productive as I could have been. I will tell you this though, the also comes to the busyness. I run a time management class from time to time, and I used to do it when I was in logistics, and I've just made it more, I don't know, better now. But
Right.
I steal a couple things and from others, and one of which is the big rocks from. I learned it from Franklin Covey, and where you do your big rocks first, and then there's room for all the little rocks at the end of the day or
Yeah.
whatever. And nobody ever, we always want to start with the something simple, the something easy. Oh, that just takes a second. That just takes a second. Oh, I'm a multitasker, which are all a bunch of bullshit myths. And
Totally.
when I have, like, for example, with Broker Carrier Summit that I was leading up to and stuff like that, I'm used to putting 20 things on my list every day. I'd put 5. And next thing I know, I'd be done with these big rocks and it'd be 3 o'clock and I'd have an extra hour and a half to do those little things that I didn't think about before my next meeting or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
focusing on what the most wildly important, the biggest, most impactful thing is. And sometimes when, again, back to the idea of just take one, what if you could only do one thing today?
Right. Yeah. Do the
What?
most important one. That's for sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
You do one thing today.
Yeah.
What's it going to be? Do it.
Right.
And then you can ask yourself the next question. But I don't even like that next part because, a lot of people hear, just do the first thing and then this, and then they don't want to do any of it. I don't even tell you to do the next thing. Just do the first thing,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Baby steps. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about your books. I wanted to let everybody know I put the books, the Amazon links in the chat here on LinkedIn if you guys want to take a look at it. But I wanted to talk a little bit before we got to go. The Selling Inspired, a mental endurance guide for enduring sales performance. Tell us a little bit about this book. You said you're going to do the audio. When's the audio come out? All that good stuff. Because I know a lot of us are on the road. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is available now on Audible, on Kindle, or download to the free Kindle app, or on paperback on Amazon. And Selling Inspired is not a sales book. It is a book for salespeople. It's a book for entrepreneurs. It's a book for, honest to God, it's a book for anybody who's ever really been feeling stuck. Out of the 26 chapters, only 5 of them are on sales. So it's wildly relatable. And what it is a journey where I start off by actually sharing in my shortcomings as a leader and as an executive, and how I allowed ego to prevent me from being a better boss, and how I allowed the ego into getting me fearful, and to getting me resentful, and to getting me stuck in honestly just draining my own mental endurance. But especially in these days where, number one, sales is different. I mean, 10 years ago, we picked up the phone, people answered it. 20 years ago, we walked into businesses. Now I don't even know how to get a hold of people. I do, but I don't. I've got like 7 different ways that I try things. And a part of that, so with mental endurance, right, we have to be willing to let go of what we knew. Honest to God, 10 years ago, I would have smacked kids for the stuff that I teach people what to do now. I'm like, how dare you send them messages and videos and use this and that, but it's a whole different thing. So adaptability, right? Letting go of expectations, letting go of demands, a wild focus on personal responsibility. But also there's some very tactical stuff about setting goals, creating that big vision I talked about, and breaking it down into actionable steps. Because once we're there, we remove the excuses, we remove the fears, and we really ratchet up self-belief. Because the idea of selling inspired is to get you to just be inspired again, to just live inspired. Right? Like people buy from people buy from that energy. And when you live inspired, you sell inspired. I often tell people, so I see the cowboy singing the helmet in the back, right? I would tell you this, don't be a salesperson who likes the Cowboys. Be a Cowboys fan who sells, who's going to buy from, right? They're going to buy from that guy. So when I was in sales, I'm not a salesperson who does obstacle course racing. I'm an obstacle course racer and I do sales. That's the guy people want to buy from. So whatever it is that your thing is, lean into it. Find ways to get fired up and begin, because that's the point of that book, is to let go of the things that hold us back, which are all up here, and to find a way to fill it with the stuff that sets your soul on fire. And then there's a few sales techniques too.
Awesome. Well, Nick, I can't say enough about this. Was such an inspiring and so needed for me personally. It just came at the right time. So thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts, your experiences. I'm looking forward to kind of getting to know you a little bit better. And how do folks connect with you if they want to learn more about your coaching, about your speaking? How do we go about doing that?
I am everywhere on the internet at Stride Motivation, but I have just been revamping my website, stridemotivation.com. So check it out, book a call. Let's chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you being here.
Jeremy, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks again for being here. This has been another episode of Construction Executives Live. If you can do one thing today, put something on the calendar where you're focusing on the things that we talked about today. Find your why, find those big goals, take some time for yourself. You will not regret it. Your business and your life will improve. So I hope